At the Dekko Foundation, we come to work each day to carry out the vision of our founder, Mr. Chester E. Dekko. Mr. Dekko was an entrepreneur and a philanthropist who believed in the power of education to bring freedom, independence, and significance to people's lives. The foundation focuses its work in communities where Mr. Dekko had an interest, supporting projects that align with the mission he left to us, to foster economic freedom through education. Across parts of Alabama, Indiana, Iowa, Minnesota, and Florida, we work in partnership with local leaders, investing in projects that bring about strong positive results in the area of youth and community development. Our work bears the imprint of Mr. Dekko, a man who influenced his world through the strength of his convictions, convictions forged and tempered over the course of his life. Let us share the story of Chet Dekko.
Chester E. Dekko was born on May 30th, 1925 in Ada, Minnesota, a small, close-knit community with a strong Scandinavian heritage. All four of Chet's grandparents had journeyed from separate villages in Norway to build a new life in America, and the family was strongly influenced by their heritage.
We were reminded as a family that we were Norwegian descent, 100% Norwegian. And it was honored at Christmas time with lutefisk and lefse. And nobody knows what that is unless they're Scandinavian. Vi isn't rough, vi isn't tough, but oof, vi is determined.
Chet's father, Edward, and his two uncles fought overseas in World War I, which solidified a strong patriotism as the family entered a new generation. Following the war, Edward married Clara, had 7 children, and became a successful business owner, with a popular restaurant that bore the family name.
The restaurant years were the good years, for my memory. You could come in and get a good, hearty meal. I think it was 35 cents, and 15 cents for a piece of pie, and a nickel for a cup of coffee.
But in 1929, it all came to an end, as the Depression brought difficult years to Ada and the Dekko family.
And then there was the fire, and there was, I think, $2,500 insurance, and they put it back together, and then the Depression hit hard. And you would cook for the multitudes, and nobody came. The family ate the food, and you had leftovers. One of the many things that drove the restaurant out of business was the giving of credit, putting it on the cuff, my dad would say. And you didn't turn away people because they didn't have money. And so there was that. There was tremendous amounts of unpaid debts that would never collected. It was just an awful time.
Adding to the family's setbacks, Edward Dekko became disabled and increasingly bedridden. As the oldest son with 6 siblings, it fell to Chet to look after his younger brothers and sisters to earn money to help support the family.
Mother did what she could, and us kids did what we could. We babysat and did things of that, but Chet was the big provider.
Dad's modest means were so modest that in order for the family to have heat during the winter, Dad would go down to the train tracks and collect coal that had fallen from the passing trains. And he also worked in the dry cleaning, he worked at a restaurant. He did a number of things to bring money, not to himself, but to the family.
We had everything but money. We had a home where there was tremendous love. There was a caring that I think was part of, Mother was so caring. It was a comfortable place to grow up. And we were never meant to feel poor. We were never meant to feel inferior. Everything was going to be just fine.
Despite his family obligations, Chet managed to enjoy his high school years.
He was in the pep band. He was in the choir at church. He was in the class plays.
Although he was an average student, his classmates remember his competitive nature and drive to succeed. By the time Chet Dekko graduated from Ada High School in 1943, the country was involved in World War II, and he was admitted directly to the V-12 Naval College Training Program at the University of Minnesota. Developed to meet the urgent need for commissioned officers, the V-12 program provided a new opportunity for young men to attend college, regardless of their financial situation or social standing. It was an opportunity that would change the course of Chet Dekko's life.
I first met Chet just after we had been inducted into the Navy V-12 program. It was at the University of Minnesota, and we were choosing roommates at the time. Chet and I somehow encountered each other and hit it off well and said, let's be roommates. So that is how it happened. The discipline was extraordinary. It's something that's totally missing in schools these days. You towed the mark or you went out to the fleet. You either played their game their way or you didn't, and if you didn't, you were gone.
Following his naval graduation in 1946, Chet continued to pursue his education, receiving degrees in mechanical engineering and economics. But more than anything else, he acquired a strong entrepreneurial spirit and the belief that to be truly successful, he had to run his own business rather than work for an employer. Following college, Chet Dekko took a job with Alcoa, the aluminum company of America. This led him to Fort Wayne, Indiana, where he met Lyle Morrill. Chet and Lyle shared the entrepreneurial desire to own their own company, and they spent countless hours together thinking of ways to put Chet's engineering expertise to work. Working tirelessly at Chet's kitchen table, they had the idea that manufacturers of commercial refrigerators could save time and money if they didn't have to wire each unit by hand. And with that, the concept of pre-assembled wiring harnesses was born. Chet and Lyle emptied their savings and borrowed money from their families to launch their new venture. And in 1952, Lyle Electric began operations in Albion, Indiana. By 1956, the partners were reaping the rewards of their efforts and began to see the tremendous potential for the future. As Lyle Electric grew, Mr. Dekko embarked on a lifelong study of management, which influenced the success of the company as much as its manufacturing. He implemented a new flat management structure and created a unique organizational system that focused on developing numerous small plants spread across rural communities. Mr. Dekko challenged his managers to sustain the company's momentum by establishing an aggressive goal of 20% growth every year.
At that time, we realized that if we were going to continue our 20% goal, that we would have to engage in a major training program. I think it's significant that 95% of our managers entered management in our company. They had no previous experience.
Lyle Morrill passed away in the 1970s, and in 1987, Chet Dekko purchased the remaining Morrill family interests in Lyle Electric through a leveraged buyout. The company became known as Group Dekko International, with over $200 million in sales. It was one of the largest privately held companies in northern Indiana. As the profile of the company grew, Mr. Dekko was widely recognized for the success he had worked so hard to achieve.
He had a knack for seeing opportunity that was so apparent, but so many people didn't see it. But he could take a very complex project and reduce it to its simplest form so that it could then be understood by all around him.
In addition to his study of management, Mr. Dekko cultivated interests in economics, social philosophy, and problem solving. Drawing inspiration from a wide range of sources, he developed a set of guiding principles for Group Dekko.
Number one is our mission and goals, the goals that are derived from our mission statement. And the second is Stephen Covey and his 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. And the third is the areas of supremacy that we feel we must have before we'll enter a market. And the fourth is MAD principles. MAD stands for Management According to Dekko. And it's the conglomeration in the main of all the things that I have learned, pirated, plagiarized from other people. But on top of the list is something that is original to our company. And that starts off with what managers do. And quickly, managers discover and solve problems and implement change to reach their organizational goals. And from there, it goes into how you discover problems and what a problem is and the different types of problems and how you go about solving the different types of problems.
Mr. Dekko earned a reputation for being a smart businessman who understood deal-making.
He was one of the sharpest businessmen that I did business with.
He was also held in high regard for his integrity.
What you saw of Dad in group settings, you would see of him in private settings.
But he was also a man of very high integrity, honesty. There were no shortcuts. Everything was done on the up and up, and everything was done as it should be.
Young managers saw in Mr. Dekko both a student of business and a mature executive who took every available opportunity to impart his insights.
I think the thing that I learned most from Chet very early on was to never stop learning. And I think that is indicative of the way he was himself. So many ways that I saw that come through in Chet. I think one of the ones that I remember most vividly was at his retirement party, a time when most people would stop feeling like they needed to learn and to experience new things. But my dad knew that Chet carried a pocket knife with him wherever he went, so my dad chose to give Chet a pocket knife for his retirement gift. And I remember coming in the kitchen the next morning, and Chet had the little rudimentary instructions of how the pocket knife worked. And he calls me over to him and just starts giving me an instructional walkthrough of how the pocket knife worked and all of its neat features. And that stayed with me for a long time, till this day, that here was a man very much accomplished that was still in awe of a simple pocket knife and its simple features. And it just reminded me that we're never too old to learn something new.
One of the first things he did when I came here was he gave me some books to read, which I thought were interesting. He said, you have to keep reading and keep learning, and that was just part of his way of life.
Dad loved to teach because he knew by doing so he would see a change.
You know, from so many aspects of the business, he was constantly teaching. From the first time you met him and he presented the MAD Planner, he was teaching you how to organize your day and organize your business and best use your time.
Perhaps because of the economic challenges of his youth, Mr. Dekko carried throughout his life personal frugality and a hatred of waste.
He prided himself on being efficient, which is his upbringing. I mean, he'd come from very, very modest means, and there wasn't anything to waste, and certainly when he saw us wasting something, he reminded us of that fact.
He would always look at the signs to see who had the cheapest gas and would travel probably 10 or 15 miles out of his way if somebody had a lower gas price.
For the amount of wealth that Mr. Dekko had, he was a frugal man. I mean, he drove a celebrity for years.
During this time, Mr. Dekko realized his vision of helping the company's managers become shareholders by offering them ownership interests in Group Dekko. In doing so, he created dozens of millionaires as the company became more and more profitable.
You know, in some business circles, people criticized him for how widely he distributed stock in the companies, but I think it was the key to the company's success that he did give ownership to plant managers and general managers, and I think that was something he was very proud of, that he found people that were hardworking and then gave them an opportunity to buy into the company, and the company flourished under that leadership style and that ownership structure.
Mr. Dekko officially retired as chairman of Group Dekko in 1984. However, he continued to work on new business opportunities and offer guidance to the company. Throughout Chet Dekko's life, his family witnessed firsthand his generosity and compassion for those in less fortunate circumstances.
I feel like my dad had a really generous heart. There was a gentleman that helped build a lot of his manufacturing plants who died unexpectedly of a brain aneurysm and left a widow with 3 or 4 children. And this poor mother, I believe, was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And so behind the scenes, my dad helped support her for at least 2 years before she could, get back on her feet and find a job.
From the beginning, Mr. Dekko was actively engaged in philanthropy in the communities in which Group Dekko had operations, as well as in his hometown of Ada, Minnesota.
He encouraged the establishment of community foundations in every community in which he had, every county at least, in which he had plants.
As time went on, he began to explore ways that his giving could have the greatest impact on people's lives.
Dad and I spent many hours discussing the foundation, discussing the foundation's mission in economic freedom, and discussing how that related to our founding fathers' vision of this country, and how we were trying to encapsulate through economic freedom at the foundation. We were really carrying out what was the very essence of what brought this country into being, and that's how the foundation was born.
In 1992, Chet Dekko passed away unexpectedly. Those who knew him well experienced a tremendous loss.
And I really missed him when he passed away. It was difficult to get used to it, but I had so much respect for him. That's probably why I still visit his grave.
Upon Mr. Dekko's death, his assets were transferred to the Dekko Foundation. Led by the board of directors, the foundation has continually expanded the ways it carries out Mr. Dekko's mission to foster economic freedom through education. Through his planning, dedication, and generosity, Mr. Dekko's legacy continues to bring about the positive change that he so enjoyed seeing others accomplish. It is a legacy that empowers individuals to develop their gifts, discover their talents, and seize the opportunities that led them to Mr. Dekko's ultimate passion, economic freedom.
Chet would be very proud of the work the foundation is doing. I think he would even be more pleased with the foundation than he was with his success in business. He developed such a great culture in the business for people to take advantage of opportunities, and that culture has spilled over into the foundation, and they are doing the same thing in developing nonprofits through their funding programs.
It is carrying out what his vision was for enabling people to develop skills that they wouldn't necessarily develop, and then therefore giving them the chance to have more choices in their life than they would have otherwise had.
I think that Mr. Dekko was a person that wanted to help other people succeed. And in terms of how that translates to the foundation, I think it's the essence of what we're trying to do today. Again, it would be easy to just give money away, but we want to do more than just give money away. We want to help an organization grow. We want to help them do a better job at bringing about change, and ultimately we want to help young people grow and be successful and economically free. And so in terms of our essence as a foundation, I think it is one and the same as what Mr. Dekko's essence was.
Mr. Dekko admired the message of a magazine ad that read simply, "There is no finish line." Thanks to his gift of the Dekko Foundation, there is no finish line in sight for the good works and positive contributions of this truly remarkable individual, Mr. Chester E. Dekko.